Welcome back to the Milwaukee Bucks rebuild on NBA 2K11. We are currently in season number 4 and are finishing up the regular season in this episode with the potential number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference up for grabs. If we manage to lock up the 1 seed, we would have first round matchup with the New York Knicks, which based off of their roster is a team I think we could handle no problem. We would start the month of March off with a victory over the Wizards and would follow it up with a 25-point victory over the Magic, bringing us to our matchup against the 2nd seeded Miami Heat. The Miami Heat were currently the 2nd seeded team in the Eastern Conference behind us, and they were looking to make a late season push to take over the number 1 spot from us headed into the playoffs. This is a Miami team that we have historically struggled with throughout the entirety of this rebuild, as they defeated us in the Eastern Conference Finals in the 2nd year of our rebuild. We did, however, get the best of them last season in the playoffs en route to winning the NBA championship, so they were definitely looking to make our path to the NBA Finals difficult again with their big 3 who had yet to win a championship, as already throughout the first 2 quarters of this game, they had controlled the tempo and momentum over us. They were playing suffocating defense against us and in turn forcing sloppy turnovers from us that would turn into unstoppable fast break plays like this for LeBron James. We needed to get some life back into our team, and hopefully this 3-point play from Larry Sanders would do just that. The very next possession, Marcus Everett would tie it up at 20 apiece with this fast break 3-pointer, and before we knew it, we had finally taken our first lead of the night over the Miami Heat. There was still a minute left to play in the second quarter though for this Miami team, but they would have no answer for Dante Wooden from beyond the 3-point line and would head into the second half trailing us by a single point. It was extremely important that we won this game against the Miami Heat tonight because they were trying to fight back in the standings and take over the number 1 seed that we currently had. The first half had been extremely close and contested, and it looked like it was going to stay that way throughout the second half as well. With just over a minute to go in the third quarter, we had reached our largest lead of the night over the Heat, but Gerald Green was doing his best to try and help pump some life back into this Miami offense. One last bucket from Chris Bosh would get our lead back down to only a single point headed into the fourth quarter, allowing Miami to take the lead back for the very first time tonight in the second half. They weren't the only ones who could shoot the 3-ball though, as Dante Wooden would respond with one of his own, and it was now looking like this game would ultimately come down to whoever had the last possession of the night. Dwayne Wade was looking to change that though, as he would slam this down over 3 defenders, drawing the foul, now forcing us to take a 3 of our own, but this shot from Dante Wooden would not fall and Miami would come down with the rebound, forcing us to send them to the free throw line to end tonight's game, and they would get the job done as they would knock down all of their free throws at the line, helping close the gap a little bit between us and them in the conference standings. We had another tough game following that loss to the Miami Heat, taking on the 3rd-seeded Rockets from the Western Conference. Uncharacteristically, we would take our 2nd loss in a row this month, but would bounce back with 3 straight wins the following week, headed into our matchup against the new 2nd seed in the East, the Atlanta Hawks. We were taking on the 2nd seed team behind us in the Eastern Conference, as the Atlanta Hawks had now taken over that spot previously held by the Miami Heat. Just like Miami, this team was a threat to taking away the number 1 seed that we currently held, so we could not lose this game tonight like we did against the Heat earlier this week. It would take almost the entire first quarter, but Lonnie Roberts would get us our first lead of the night, and with the bench unit coming in, we would see them help extend that lead late in the first quarter, getting one last ridiculous shot to fall as the buzzer would go off to keep a 6-point lead. We only made 1 3-pointer the entire first quarter, so it was about time that we saw another one fall for us, but that didn't seem to give us a spark as we cooled down and Atlanta was now heating up from the field. With just over 2 minutes to go, they would get it down to a 1-point game, finally taking the lead back over us for the first time in the second quarter courtesy of Al Horford. We needed to get the momentum swinging back in our favor to carry over to the start of the second half, but our defense just did not have any answer for Al Horford in the first half tonight against us and would only have a 1-point lead halfway through this matchup. This was a must-win game for us tonight as the Atlanta Hawks were challenging us for the number 1 seed in our conference, and it was a close one as we had been trading leads back and forth with them the entire game. That 3-pointer was surprisingly Dante Wooden's first bucket of the entire game tonight for us, and his lack of offensive presence was apparent as we were not shooting the ball from 3 well at all tonight. Thankfully, the 3rd-year shooting guard would come up clutch and knock one down for us, but that didn't seem to help us at all the rest of the third quarter with our shooting woes that were going on. The fourth quarter was not off to a great start for us as we would give Atlanta an open look at 3 and finally would return the favor with one of our own from Dante Wooden. That shot finally seemed to get him out of his shooting slump tonight for us, and the rest of the team as well apparently, as we would take the lead back over the Hawks. With just under a minute and a half to go, we would see our lead extend to 4 points, but Atlanta would take it right back with this step back 3 from the top of the key. It was nothing Dante Wooden couldn't answer for us though, as he would return the favor, but Atlanta had come to play tonight as they would tie it back back up at 63 with 9 seconds left, and then it would be Brandon Jennings at the buzzer to give us a win over Atlanta, knocking it down for us and securing the win over the second-seeded Atlanta Hawks, all while giving the fans a story to tell when they go home tonight. We would go 3-1 over our next 4 games following that win, with our only loss coming to the Washington Wizards on the road, and now we're taking on the second-seed Memphis Grizzlies from the Western Conference. We were at home in Milwaukee and we're taking on one of the top teams from the Western Conference tonight. The Memphis Grizzlies were coming into this matchup against us with a 51-21 record so far in the season, a record that had gotten them to the second place in the Western Conference with the playoffs closing in fast. They were one of our potential matchups if we made it to the NBA Finals this season, so it would be a good test of skill for us tonight. Memphis had jumped out to an early lead in the first quarter, but we were slowly getting our way back into it with this three-pointer, but their explosive offense, which was one of the best in the league this season, managed to build that lead back up by the end of the first quarter. That was until we pulled off this improbable pass and shoot with Brandon Jennings as the buzzer went off at the end of the first. Hopefully that unlikely last-second three-pointer would get some momentum flowing into the offense for us in the second, and it looked like it had as Edward Marsh would knock down this fast-break three-pointer for our first lead of the game so far. The Grizzlies, however, would waste no time by taking the lead right back with a corner three of their own, as we were back to trading leads with Memphis after this insane dunk from Larry Sanders. With just over a minute and a half to go in the first half, Andrew Bogut would bully his way into giving us a 4-point lead, a lead that was quickly starting to extend before the end of the first half tonight. Memphis would call a timeout to try and slow down our momentum, but that did not seem to work the way they wanted, and even though Mike Conley would get one last jumper to fall for the Grizzlies before halftime, they would still trail by 7 points as we headed into the locker room. We were taking on one of the best teams in the Western Conference tonight, and they had put up a tough fight in the first half of this game, but it was the second half now, and we would go up by over double digits against them. We hadn't made as many three-pointers tonight as we usually do, but we're making up for it with great shooting from mid-range, but our defense wasn't holding up as well, and we were slowly allowing Memphis to chip away at the lead we had built. A fast break three from Dante Wooden would quickly eradicate any damage the Grizzlies offense had done, and then it was Brandon Jennings who would follow that up with a step-back three-pointer of his own. With just under 10 seconds left in the third quarter, Jamal Crawford would respond for Memphis with a three of his own, but his team still had a 12-point deficit headed into the final quarter of play. If we wanted to win this game tonight, our offense had to stay on point like it did in the third quarter, and our defense would have to stand strong and not give any easy looks to the Grizzlies offense here in the fourth. That is easier said than done though, as Memphis was chipping away at this lead and got it down to a 10-point game, but that is as close as this game would get the rest of the night for them. We had no problem knocking down any shot from any spot on the court in the fourth quarter tonight, and our defense did a great job of making the Grizzlies settle for bad shot selections the rest of the game, helping us walk away with a key victory here at home tonight and giving us some more momentum as we got ready for the upcoming playoffs. We would close out March with a 58-16 record headed into the final month of the season, and not only would we improve upon last year's win record by over 5 wins, but we would finish with the best record in the entire league at 63-19. That win would give our head coach Scott Skiles NBA Head Coach of the Year award, but we would not have a single player make any All-NBA team this season, surprisingly. Unsurprisingly, however, we would make the playoffs as the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference and would be taking on the 8th-seeded Washington Wizards in the first round of the playoffs.